are listening to Voice of Uganda Radio, the mouthpiece of all Ugandans, wherever they may be, to voice their problems without fear of any retribution. The Voice of Uganda Radio works in sync with FADU, the Federalist Alliance of Democracy and Development in Uganda. FADU is an organization that was formed to work as a platform for all Ugandans at home and outside to work synergistically to liberate our mother Uganda from the ruthless invaders that have sucked it dry. Therefore, FADU invites all able Ugandans to act now and save the Ugandan humanity that is being slaughtered, destroyed, and robbed by a few people unworthy to call themselves Ugandans. Many people are crying for action in Uganda as they languish in misery. FADU echoes their cries by making the loudest alarm to everyone to join FADU, not tomorrow or the next day, but today. The number to join is 408-904-7038. The email is info@fadu.org.
Fellow citizens, we call upon you to practice resistance and protest against Museveni. We call upon you to oppose strongly the Museveni government, which is responsible for the downfall of Uganda. It is important to know that Museveni is afraid of the millions of people who are living for that day, for the light of day when Uganda will be liberated from his dictatorial regime. Fellow citizens, it's been 24 years of dictatorship. We should all know that at present our drive for freedom has already grown so strong that Museveni has already begun to change his tactics. We call upon people to participate, to organize silent stand-ins for a free Uganda. We call upon people to demonstrate that we're tired of him. We call upon governments in the United States of America and abroad, people in responsible positions, politicians, only to act in the service of peace, justice, and freedom for Uganda. We call upon people to use all legal and imaginative means and methods in order to ensure peace, justice, and freedom for Uganda. We call upon people from the north and south, from the east.
Hello, and you are listening to Miss Brenda. This is Voice of Uganda Radio. To some of you, I will say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time zone that you're in. So welcome aboard, and thanks so much for being a part of Voice of Uganda Radio this morning and the American Connection, which I promise will be a really interesting and should be a very good show today. I am going to encourage you very early that if you want to call in and participate and be a part of the show, don't feel free to call in at any time. You don't have to wait until the second half of the show or whatever, because one of the things we've noticed that is starting to happen is we have a lot of calls that come in at the second half, and then the conversation gets to be really good, and then we run out of time, and I have to kind of cut it short. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to have to cut it short. We don't want anyone to not be able to get in and call in on the program. And I don't want to have to cut anyone short when they're talking and expressing their feelings or their emotions about something. So I just really want to encourage you. I think most of my listening audience has gotten pretty used to me now, that you should feel pretty comfortable, to just go ahead and call in, and it's okay because we will pick up where we left off after any phone calls or any conversations. It always means a lot to me when you are part of the program and there is a lot of feedback, because I don't always have the answers, and I may not be speaking on behalf of everyone. So we need those phone calls. We need those conversations. It just sends us in a different direction that I may not have decided to take us. And so it's always very good. So I appreciate all of you, my listeners, and I thank you so much for being on board and for giving me 2 hours out of your day to just really speak to your heart about Uganda and some of the things that are happening and going on. Thank you so much to my American audience, which continues to grow. I'm going to encourage you guys also not to be shy. I know that one of the things I want the Ugandan audience to know is the American audience doesn't understand a lot of things, and they are really being schooled, and they're learning a lot and listening and really participating. And I get a lot more emails and conversations with them one-on-one that sometimes I work into my program, and I try to share it with you, my Ugandan listeners. But they're there. They may be quiet. They're like my Ugandan audience was in the beginning. It's taken a while for you guys to get comfortable with me and start calling in. And the same thing is happening with the American side of the American connection. But they're there, and they're listening, and they're part of the program. So please feel free to call in and discuss and talk about anything you wish to, and anything that you feel like we need to know that would better help us to better understand things too would be great to know. I will go ahead and tell you that the membership in FADU is growing, and we are very, very appreciative of that. We know those numbers are going to have to be really large here after a while. We've got something on board, but we don't have a whole lot of time. So we're going to have to move as quickly as possible to make sure that we continue to see those numbers grow even more in volume. Let me just reiterate that when you go out to FADU.org, click on Registration tab. And in that Registration tab, go ahead and register. But remember, when you come out of there, it's going to send you an email confirmation. Now, for some of you, that email confirmation may go in your junk box, or that email confirmation may come right up on your desktop. You have to click on that. When you click on that and it opens up, it will say, congratulations, you have registered. Until you actually click on that email confirmation email that it sends back to you, you have not registered with FADU. So if you are one of the ones that are listening to my voice today, if you have gone out there and registered, but you don't really remember that second part, going direct, because it sends an email right away. It's not something you have to wait on. By the time you get into your email box, the email confirmation should be there. So if you don't remember doing that part, you may want to go out there and register again, because we will monitor that. We will see if you're in there, more than once, and we'll delete you out. But I just want to reiterate that, because I know some people have said they've registered and we haven't seen some of them up on the roster yet. So I just want to make sure that you understand that part. When it sends you that confirmation in your email, click on it, and that's when it's all finalized and you are a member of FADU. Because one of the great things that are getting ready to start happening with FADU, we are growing faster than we thought we were going to be growing here. I don't think we've been on the air 6 months yet, and we have so many things out there on the burners that we're working on, that we're moving towards and getting some things taken care of. One of the things that's going to eventually start to happen with FADU is those who are members of FADU will get private information and will get privilege of some things that we may not be able to share on air with everyone. So you really want to become a part of that, because you don't want to exclude yourself just by listening to the radio and being a part of that. You don't want to be excluded in other information that may not be addressed on the radio, but maybe information that we want the Ugandan and those in the diaspora to know, but we cannot share that information on the radio. So make sure you're going out there and that you're registering and becoming a part of that. And we thank you so much here at Voice of Uganda Radio for participating and for being a part of the growth here at Voice of Uganda Radio. I had a chance for some of those of you who probably listened to the program on Monday. We had a special interview with Dr. Gilbert Bugenya. And the former vice president there in Uganda, it was a very good conversation that people were having with him. And you'd be proud to know that I listen to Luganda so much now that I'm actually starting to be able to follow conversations. I can't pick everything out of them, but I'm actually starting to do much, much better. I'm not good at speaking it yet, but I am starting to understand it a little more than I did when we previously started up. It was very good. It was very informative. He had a lot to share. He had a lot to say. And I think the audience base there were a lot of people out listening, so we knew it was something that you were interested in, and we knew it was something that you were able to participate in. I just want to share my segment, because I wanted to continue on with questions that I asked him. I also want Ugandans in the diaspora, Ugandans at home, and my American audience to know and be aware of, too, this growing phenomena. It's being called the magic of the diaspora because of the growth that has taken place with those in the community of the diaspora, that the American government is getting on board and paying attention and noticing that, hey, we have something here. There's something going on. I'm going to share with you what I talked with him about, but I also want to share from the perspective that those of you who are in the diaspora, we know what's going on in Uganda. We know the hardship, the heartache. We know we've been talking about it from week to week, from month to month here on Voice of Uganda Radio. So we know there has to be a movement. We know there has to be a change because the freedom, the liberties, justice, and rights of the Ugandan people are being corroded daily. We also know that corruption and a lot of other things have kept Uganda from really being able to benefit from a lot of the growth economically on a global perspective. So I'm gonna also dig into that a little bit as well. When I called in and spoke with him on Monday, I spoke with him about Senator Coons. A lot of you that have been listening to me from the beginning, and those of you who are just coming on board, Senator Coons is a senator of Delaware. He is the Senate for Foreign Relations Committee, and he also chairs the subcommittee on African Affairs. He is a great person to know. You should go out on his website and make it one of your favorites so that you can click on it and see what he's talking about and what's going on the continent of Africa. You should put him in your favorites because if I ever refer to him on my show and we talk about things in depth, you can just click out there and go and see the information instead of trying to figure out where he's at and trying to find him. He is a good person to have in your favorites on your computer desktop as far as his website. He has condemned Uganda, and we had talked about this prior. He's condemned Ugandan's government because of its violent suppression of political dissent for democracy, freedom, and protection of human rights there in Uganda. He is aware of what's going on in Uganda. He knows about it. He has visited during the turmoil times when things were going on. Because one of the times when he was there, I think Kizza Besigye was arrested and put in jail, and that's when the reporter that was here from the United States of America was put in jail also. Senator Coons was in Uganda at that particular time. So he is very, very aware of the Ugandan people. He's very, very aware of the fight that's going on. He is very, very aware of the Ugandans that are in the diaspora, which is a good thing because of the growth that's happening within that. I asked him about, just how he felt about that comment that the senator had made. And he answered it very well, just like most of you who call in and we talk here on this program. These are things that cannot be tolerated. These are things that should not be happening in the 21st century with growth all around. These are things that cannot be happening. But one of the things that struck me, and I thought it was very interesting, and that's what my program is basically going to be about today, and what I wanted to share with you, the Ugandans there in the diaspora. He said that the strength of the United States economy ties in with the Africans who are outside of the country, the diaspora community. He talked about the strength of economic growth, not only here in the United States, but in Africa. And he talked about it from a standpoint of where those who are outside of the country would play the biggest roles. Let me just put something in your head so you'll understand how serious the world globally, and we're talking about internationally, we're talking about organizations like the World Bank, the European Union, and the United Nations. They have started to pay very, very close attention to those that are living outside of the countries in the diaspora because of the economic growth and development that is happening in an international relationship between other countries and the country and the continent there of Africa. $540 billion in wires. $540 billion was sent into African countries for development and for keeping their families going and their business structures going and medicine and food and whatever it is that we're sending monies home for. So the international organizations are starting to pay very, very close attention to this and saying, this is a lot of money. Who is doing this and why are they doing this? So they have gone back over the years now to do all these studies on the diasporas who are outside of the country and all of the connection and the ties that they continue to have with their government, even though they're outside of the country. This is what interests the American people, and it's what interests other countries throughout the world where they have people from, and not just Uganda. I'm really speaking on behalf of Uganda, but we're talking about globally throughout the continent of Africa, that the outside world is starting to pay very close attention to what is happening because they have said, with all of those that are living outside of their countries in the diaspora, if you were a country, if you took all of those people collectively and made them and gave them their own country, you would be ranked as number 5 economically in the world, competing with the United States, UK, Canada, Switzerland. I mean, you would be number 5. Now, what that says to me and what that should say to you in the diaspora is the importance of what you have done, the commitment that you have continued to keep with your countries, a commitment that is speaking so loudly in volumes now that the world is getting on board to say, what in the world is happening here? And how can we benefit from those in the diaspora? To be a country and be 5th in the economic growth, that is big. That means that you guys are making a change and people are starting to listen. This is what we have started to say here on Voice of Uganda Radio. In becoming a member of FADU, becoming united, and becoming committed to one another. Because one of the things that they say about those that are in the diaspora is that there are no barriers anymore. They don't see borders. They don't see the north of Uganda, the south, the east, the west. We're talking about globally on the geographical map of Uganda. Those who are in the diaspora, because you have lived outside of your countries, you understand economic and you understand economic growth. Because you have lived outside of your countries, you understand development, infrastructure. You understand education, a good education system, how it works in the long run. The importance of educating your youth, educating and putting the best systems in place in your universities. You understand marketing and marketability. You understand because you're entrepreneurs. You're some of the most educated people in your country. If you took all of the Ugandans that were living outside of Uganda in the diaspora and you put them together, there would be more intelligence outside of Uganda than there is inside Uganda. That's big and that speaks volumes and it says a lot. And I tell you why it says a lot. Because one of the things I have said on my program, not only Freedom at Hand, but here at the American Connection, the movement of change for the good of Uganda is going to happen in the diaspora. You are the ones that are going to make the difference and move the country out of its present state into the next state, because of the intellectual people that are outside of the country that have lived in other areas, and not just in America. We're not talking about those that are just in the United States of America. We're talking about those of you that are in the UK, Canada, Sweden, Australia, Germany, all throughout France, everywhere, because Ugandans are absolutely everywhere. But what you bring back to the table is you bring back the knowledge of what you have learned, what you know of how true democracy works. And because you understand that and you know that, that is why so much noise is made on the outside of the country rather than the inside of the country, because we understand in our collective countries and in our collective areas, wherever we may be, we understand and we know the process, the way things should work, the way people should be treated, the freedom of press, the freedom of speech, and the freedom in any category in which your Constitution gives you those rights and those freedoms. Because one of the things we have to understand about the Ugandan people is this. Their fight is not the fight of the South Africans. Their fight is like the fight of the American people, which is why I do Freedom at Hand so much on and talk about iconic leaders and what they did. Uganda has its independence. Uganda has a constitution that is of the Republic of Uganda that is supposed to work for the people of Uganda, which right now is not working for the people of Uganda. Uganda is being told that they have their rights and their freedom and justice and liberty, and they're being educated and there's no discrimination and all of the things that South Africa had to fight for because they were not even considered a part of the nation. They were just not anywhere in the Constitution as far as any rights, justices, or liberties. They had none. But what the Ugandan people have is they already have the stability of the United States of America. They just don't have the governing. They just don't have true democracy the way that they need to. Things have been set up in that country to run and make that country work the way it needs to work for the Ugandan people, but you have a leader who is sitting in office and in power right now that is slowly draining and taking those things away from the Ugandan people and forcing a great amount of fear on the Ugandan people so they continue. Fear will keep people at bay. They will not fight a government, and we know that. This is why the importance of those in the diaspora communities are important, because we are in a position now where the world globally is starting to look at the diaspora communities. The United States, which I'm going to go into that in a little bit, is really trying to make up a partnership with the diaspora communities with their home countries so that we can start the dialogue and we can start the conversations on how we work together. And the reason the United States of America wants to work with those who are in the diaspora in these African countries is simply this. You have a better background and a better understanding of the way true democracy works because you have lived in the United States of America. Even not within the United States of America, but even within other countries, like I just said, you have an understanding of the way true government should work. When you look at your loved ones at home, when you hear from them, when you talk to them, you know that they are not living in a true democracy. One of the things the United States of America has also published out, and you'll be able to find all this on Senator Coon's website, which I'll give out that information a few times before I go off the air. So if you haven't gotten the information in the beginning, just sit tight with a pen and pencil, and I'll give you that information on how to get on his website and how to pull up and get this information for yourselves. Because power is knowledge. I can tell you a lot of things, but you can read into it and gain a lot more than I can even share on a 2-hour program. And the information that I give you here on the American Connection is to connect those of you in the diaspora with the government here so that we can start to move forward. It cannot be one collective voice that makes the noise. It has to be more. We have to stand united. That's why in his proposals, he refers to the community of diaspora, the diaspora community, because they know that it's not one person. It's a collective group. That's the way true democracy works, and that's the way the United States government handles anything when it comes to uniting or pulling people together. They want the collective voices of the people to be heard, not just a few people who feel like they have all the answers, which is a sad thing of what's happening there in Uganda with the sitting president. Because with him, what you have is one person dictating how everybody else should live. And that it should not be the norm. You know, the fear, we continue to talk about the fear because the fear is important. And even for some of you who are outside of Uganda, still living in the diaspora, you still have a fear for your family members that are home. So a lot of you are paralyzed in what you would even do now simply because of the the fear of what you fear would happen to your family members at home. Someone asked me, I got an email from one of my American listeners after we went off the air Sunday when Anna Deck was on, the president-elect Gill there at McCary University. And she was saying, wow, she was saying, how can this person speak in such a way about a government where others have spoke out, and we're learning that there is harm, there is fear, there is, retributions that are happening to these people. And I will share this with Anna when she's on program next. But one of the things I tell them is that I think for this individual, it's the same thing that happened with Gandhi. It's the same thing that happened with Martin Luther King. It happened with Steve Biko. It happened with Rosa Parks. It happened with Harriet Tubman, and the many, many others that I will eventually start to share on Freedom at Hand. They face their fears. And when you face your fear and there's no more fear, that you're driven truly and deeply by love and compassion for the people that stand with you, that fear is taken out. And that drive comes forward. And that's what makes great leaders. It doesn't matter that she's at a university. It doesn't matter where her background or whatever is going on with her. Great leaders face their fear head on, and then they move forward. And I said that is what I feel from her when we talk or when we communicate. The other example I want to use, and this is mostly for my Ugandan audience that is inside Uganda right now. And even those of you in the diaspora that still have anxieties and fears because of your families or whatever could happen there in Uganda, because we know that Uganda is not a safe place right now. We see this from people that are going home and deaths are occurring, and it's unexplainable deaths that hopefully, because it happened to someone who's in the diaspora, these things will be investigated in a different way, because this is the leverage power that those in the diaspora is starting to have. And I need you to get this, and I need you to understand the power that you have in the diaspora. You may be sitting in your apartments alone, or you may be in your workplaces alone, or you may feel isolated in your areas or wherever you're at around the world, but your power is being heard now by those who are in power so that you can start to make the difference. One of the things I want you to know when talking about Anna Adek and the fear factor, because we've talked about pathological fear a lot on this program. If you are standing alone and a wolf comes up and you're afraid, that wolf will sense the fear in you right away. He will sense that fear. He will taunt with you a little, and then he will attack you. And the only reason he is attacking you for the reason that he sensed your fear. And he fed off of that fear, which puts you in great harm. When you start to stand your ground against a wolf, a mean dog, or anything, you start to stand your ground and you start to make your move towards him just in gestures, he will start to question whether or not you're really afraid. He will continue to try to taunt you, but eventually, if you stand your ground and there is no fear in you, he will run away. Because they are not known to attack where there is no fear. They are only known to attack where there is fear. So let's talk about the sitting president right now that is governing the people there in Uganda. The reason he continues to put fear in the hearts of the Ugandan people is because he will keep the control. He will keep the control, and he will keep the upper hand. He will have more control over your loved ones in Uganda than you in the diaspora, who are the economic support of those people in Uganda. Is that where you want your money going? And those are people who you want that type of the monies for economic growth that, yes, Uganda is benefiting from, to be in the hands of those people. This is the importance and why you understand why this government will never be the government that can move forward with those in the diaspora. And those in the diaspora are making their voices heard loud and clear that this is not the government that we support, and this is not the government that we want. So this is where the leverage comes in, my fellow Ugandans, with the United States now looking at the communities, those in the diaspora, as connecting with those as a way of connecting back into their countries. This is where we start to have the leverage. This is where we start to make the movement. This is where, when they get ready to start meeting and calling in, and I will stay on top of it. I will know when these committees and these things are starting to be put together, because they're not being put together just for the Ugandans. They're being put together for all in the diaspora on the African continent, which means that we would be invited to those conversations as well. But the voices have to be heard of those in the diaspora that we do not support this government that is in office now, and that this is not the government that the people in the diaspora wants to work with. So that when the time comes that for change of power and change of hand, the American government is on board because you have made your voices heard. And it will probably only be a few of us, and that's why we encourage you to become members of FADU, FADDU.org. There will be information that will start to move after a while, and it will move fast and it will move rapidly. And if you're not on board, you may miss out on opportunities in which you may like to be a part of these conversations to make your voices heard. This is why Charlie talks about a lot on his program, taking FADU out to the people, because we have to start making our own communities of those in the diaspora. So we know where you are, who you are. Your spokesperson speaks on behalf of all of those of you in that area of that community, so that when we have to bring you together to say, how do we make this work? How do we move forward? How does FADU help unite all those are out in the diaspora to unite, so that when we go to the United States government to say, these are our concerns, these are our problems, this is what we want, that we have leverage on a different playing field. I have said on my program here in the American Connection several times that if you think that the sitting president in Uganda is not aware of what's going on outside, you are sadly mistaken, because he does know. He knows the power of those of you who are outside in the diaspora. He knows the power that you hold to be able to bring about change in your government. Because when your voices start to be heard, he cannot quiet those voices. He cannot intimidate and put fear in your heart like he does in the hearts of the Ugandan people. The people in Uganda live in fear each and every day, and this man does everything possible to make sure that they do. Anna shared on the show, on the Freedom at Hand, about the brutality of what's happening there with the police force and the army. She talked about someone that she knew and had been following his case, a man who was hurt on the job and lost 2 of his fingers, and went back to the job to see if he can get some kind of compensation, because this is the way that he takes care of his family. And I can just see this man in my mind. I don't think this man went there violently. I don't think he went there arrogantly. I don't think he went there boastfully. I think he went there with humility to say, give me a job, working, doing anything, anywhere. I'm hurt. I still need to provide for my family. Is there something you can do? After repeatedly going back, I guess the company decided we don't need this. We don't want the rest of the employees to see this and think that we're going to fold or whatever. So the police is there waiting on him one day when he goes, and they beat him. And they beat him into a coma. Now, talk about fear. That's one way of putting fear in the other employees that are there. Talk about fear that you put in the heart of this man and his family and his loved ones and his children to say, if you stand on your principles and your rights, this is what happens to you. So you get a country of people who will no longer stand for what's right, even though they know it's right, because of fear of retribution or what could happen to them. So we have to say, these type of things are not right. These things are not tolerable. This is not the humanitarian that should be going through these type of issues, and nor should a government feel that in order to keep its people in control, that it has this type of force to bring fear into the hearts of the people. It's not a way to govern any country, yet this is the way that this is the way that the sitting president continues to govern there in Uganda. Why? For the simple reason that he can. For the very, very simple reason that he can. So I say all this because I want those of you in the diaspora to understand. The fight for the country and the right of the Ugandan people start here. It starts outside of the country. We cannot fight and we cannot have our differences to where we cannot unite and become as one. Because there is room for growth economically for everyone in Uganda. Not just some in Uganda, but for everyone in Uganda. Because Uganda is one of the ones that they're marking on the marker for growth in the next 10 years. Not that they're there now, but they're looking at the wealth of this country in the next 10 years to say, this is a country that we definitely want to be engaged with those in the diaspora. To unite us back with those people, because this is what they're finding out. This is what they're finding out from all the monies and all the funds that are sent back into Uganda. One of the things they're finding out is that the Ugandan people are the part of the economic growth that is happening there in Uganda. How many of you have businesses in Uganda right now that are in the diaspora, are supporting a family member that has a business, that you've given that family member the money to start that business? Or it's considered to be a family business, but the large bulk of what got it started and what continues to keep it successfully is you in the diaspora. These are the people the United States government are interested in. How many of you have homes that you still own in Uganda or that you are building? Because someday when it's over in this country and you're tired and you're ready to retire, you are going back home. And right now there may be people living in that home that you are considered that they're rental properties. They're rental properties that are making money for your family, which is still feeding into a family business. Or they're rental properties that are making money for you so that you can continue to buy more properties, more land, or more of whatever it is you need to grow the country. The American government is aware of that, and they know that this is where the growth is. The growth is not in the country. The growth is outside of the country that is fueling the country. And now the rest of the world wants to get on board. And here in the United States of America, the American government wants to get on board. You are already, without even knowing it, just doing what you do out of kindness, consideration, compassionate, love, commitment for your families. You are already a part of the economic growth in Uganda, thereby sharing in the rights of what is happening in your country. So is Uganda growing economically because it's growing, or is it growing because of you, those that are in the diaspora? The United States government feels, through all of its research and all of its studies, that Uganda is growing because of the diaspora. It is what gives it economic stability, and it is what fuels so that the country continues to maintain itself and continues to grow. Is it at the level that it could be? No, it is not at the level that it could be. And we all know that because of corruption. One of the things the United States government has already said, that the only way they're going to be able to work with these countries and with those in the diaspora is through transparency. There has to be accountability and no corruption. So can we say we can be on board and be a part of this with the government that is in place now? We can't. But again, I go back to who has the leverage to make this change. You do. Because who is the American government listening to right now? Who is Senator Coons' office talking about right now? He's talking about you, those that are in the diaspora. Now, understanding that we are looking from the United States of American perspective, but those of you in all around the world globally, you are a part of those numbers The United States is doing a mapping here within, but the United Nations, the World Bank, and the European Union, they're looking at things from a global perspective. And on the global perspective, that's why they have made the comment that if those in the diaspora were their own country, they would be number 5 as far as an economic power in the world. So that gives a lot of leverage and a lot of power to you who have just been loving, loyal, abiding citizens taking care of your family members back home, not even realizing how much you were changing the trajectory of your own lives. So without even knowing, you have made yourself one of the biggest entities now that the world wants to get on board and find out how they're doing it, what they're doing, what their education backgrounds are, how they can work with our countries, not just the United States of America, but wherever you're at, how they can work with those countries in order to filter back into their countries so that these countries can benefit from the economic growth. Now, the reason I speak so much on the United States of America is because we know the powerhouse that it is for growth and change in any environment and anywhere. And we know that whether you are, no matter where you are in the global perspective of the world, becoming a part of FADU helps us here in the United States to market Uganda on a global scale to the United States of America, because it unites us no matter where we're at, which is the importance of that, the communities of the diaspora. Because change in the country is not just change for those who are in America. It's change for those of you no matter where you're at, anywhere in the world. Because the hope of all Ugandans is to someday return back home to Uganda and be a part of your country. Just because you're not there doesn't mean that you're not a part of it. I'm going to just paraphrase a little bit from something that the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, the former Prime Minister, Porter Simpson Miller, had this to say about what's happening with the diaspora and how we need to see them and embrace them back in their countries of origin, their countries of birth. That because of the diaspora, we have redefined the concept of the nations. It has been redefined. The nations today is not territorial. It is not bounded by space. And what she means by that is because so much of what is happening inside of these countries is coming from those who are outside of the country that you can no longer define that we are one nation. We're no longer Ugandans. We're no longer Jamaicans. We're no longer Nigerians. It's becoming non-territorial because so many live in the diaspora that feed back into their economies and make those economies what they are today. They're a part of the social and political structure within their country and within those borders. And the reason they're part of the social and political structure is because of education. Majority of the money that Africans and others are sending back into these countries is to educate those that they've left behind. Education is very, very powerful. We understand this and we know this simply because this is the reason the teachers strike in Uganda. This is the reason the professors are now putting their books and things aside now. When you are educated, it gives you a great sense of power. Even those of you who are in the diaspora, who didn't attend any universities at all, you just got out of the country, you came here, you worked, or maybe you came here through the lottery. No matter how you came here, you never went to a university, you just came here, you built your life, you've started working and going on. You are still some of the most intellectual people for your country right now. Because one of the values that you have is the fact that you have lived outside of the country and you understand the way true democracy works. You understand the way freedom works. freedom of press, freedom of religion. You understand the concept of economy growth, taxes, infrastructure. You understand things at a level that you would never understand if you were still in Uganda. So knowledge, you have the power of knowledge as well. Not everybody, and it has been said on some of the programs, not everyone who holds a degree are actually the intellects that we should go to for the advice we need sometimes. Sometimes it's the ones who have no degrees and have no studies, but they have the common sense and they are able to connect in and understand things on a level that makes them just as knowledgeable as a person that went to school and got their degree. I think what the government is doing to the teachers and to the system there is just terrible. I get this from my American listeners all the time. It was a sad day in the American community when the teachers decided to go back without anything being resolved. Because broken promises are broken promises, and broken promises stay broken unless the problem is fixed, and then it moves forward. You can't say, okay, to a train. You can't tell the train, go ahead and deliver the goods, and we will fix the tracks after you deliver the goods. If the tracks are broken, the train cannot move forward. And this is what has happened to the teachers, and this is what we feel in the American community has been a downfall and very, very sad for the teachers in that community. Because now you go out there and you read the news, and now he's starting to penalize those who did not show up when they should have shown up, that he feel like they should have shown up during the strikes. One of the things that president does not understand, if there's a strike, nobody shows up, Mr. President. If there's a strike, nobody shows up. It doesn't work that way. And now that the strike is over, you cannot go back and penalize the people that did not show up. If you're going to penalize the people that you felt were heads in their departments or heads of the schools, you have to punish all the teachers. You can't just take a handful and punish a handful. It does not happen like that anywhere in the world. In the society in which we live in, things like that do not happen. Let me just give you a small example. In the United States of America, under workers' unions, when they strike together. When a deal is met, it's met for all, not for some. It's met for all, not for some. When they go back to work, no one is singled out as to what was your participation in this, what did you do, how were you a part of this. This president, in this dictatorship, has it all backwards. He has it all wrong. He's governing in a way that makes sense to no one but him. And the hard part for me in all of this is that Parliament sits aside and allows this to happen. Another one of the conversations that's starting to be had in the American community is right now our government is closed. And our government we're working it out now. We'll probably open back up here soon. But this is the thing. You have to stand up for what is right. If our President Barack Obama, if he would have folded and given these few people in the Republican Party what they wanted, not only would they have changed the trajectory of the course of history for the American people, but the American people would have suffered. Because you have about 40 million people who will benefit from what the president is standing behind. And for this president, it was worth it for the government to be shut down because these 40 million Americans mean something to him and they are entitled to a better insurance. Regardless of what's going on in their life, they have the right to shop around for an insurance that is good for them and meets their needs. And because you have a handful of people who are considered multimillionaires that don't want to fund this because their tax money is going to go to fund this, they don't even know how much money they pay in tax or how much money they give in tax because that's how much money they have. So would this have affected them in the long run anyway? Probably not. They give away the amount of money that would cost to to benefit a portion of the monies that are needed to fund this program. There have been times that Parliament needed to stand together for the Ugandan people. This is what I'm saying with a president. Where are the people who are standing for Uganda? Now, could our Senate and our House of Representatives and our congressmen, could they have shut down the president completely? Maybe. But the president is put there to protect the people. He understands this and he knows this. Parliament, if your president is not protecting its people, you have the same leverage that we have shown and demonstrated here in the United States of America over these past 2 weeks. If you stand together, even if it's in fear, if you stand together, you will be victorious. This president automatically knows what's going to happen. That's why he pushes things to the limit. He already knew that he would do something somewhere that these teachers would fold and they would go back to their jobs. And then he would use that as leverage to teach them a lesson. You're falling for the same tricks over and over and over again. The only way you're going to get past this and not be affected by it is to stand strong and united as a country, to stand strong and united as a parliament, to stand strong and united at your universities. The unfortunate thing for Uganda, and we all know this, is that the military runs the country. When you have a country that's ran by military force, it's very, very hard to be strong and courageous during those times. It's very, very hard. But can I just say this so that it seeps into the mind of the Ugandan people and those of you who are in the diaspora? When those teachers stood together, you notice that things shut down. When those teachers stood together, you noticed that the army didn't have anybody to fight against. The army couldn't shoot tear gas. The army couldn't arrest anybody. They took the power away from the army. They took the power away from the police. They took the power away. Do we have a caller there, or we just? Okay, I think we may be having someone that's trying to call in, but we're going to go ahead and continue on. You know, if that didn't show the Ugandan people anything, it showed them the power that they had and the control that they had. They took the power away from the police. They took the power away from the army. They took the power away from the government to govern, and they took the power away from the president. I have a call on, so I'm going to go ahead and take this caller. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, Miss Brenda. I'm calling to thank you again, as I always do, about what you are doing for our country. We really do appreciate for calling on all Ugandans in the diaspora, letting us know the power we have to cause change back in Uganda. Yes, it's very, very true. We can do that if we put our mind collectively, as we Ugandans outside Uganda, we can cause change, positive changes in Uganda. I want to let our listeners know, people have been talking about Museveni. Yes, and we'll keep doing that. I would like to, I'm going to talk about an article that was put on Facebook, Voice of Uganda Facebook, Voice of Uganda Radio Facebook. And I encourage all those people, all our friends in Facebook, to please find time, go read that article. It's very graphic, but yet it shows exactly the true color of this man, Museveni, how he killed people with impunity. Most people do not understand what happened between 1986 and 1988. I was in Uganda. I had gone to visit. By that time, people were very happy, especially in the southern part of the country. But what was going on in the northern region of Uganda was hell. I want people to go read that article. And when we get time, we'll put that article again on Fadu. This is not the type of person that should be our leader. After you go and read that article, it's a lengthy article, detailing, showing exactly what was happening, who was involved, how people were killed, how people were buried alive. And one of the ladies, one of the child at that time, she saw her parents being killed, and what she explained that the UPDF cut parts of her mother's body and put them in the pot and cooked them. And she was saying that these were part of UPDF. By that time, they were called NRA, National Resistance Army. They killed people like insects, people in northern Gulu, specifically the Acholi, how they stole their cows. I want people to go and read that article. And after you read that article, and if you come out not believing that this man has to go, I don't know what could ever convince you. This man, Museveni, right now is fighting ICC. Anyone who has Uganda at heart should go and read that article on Facebook. Then you understand why Museveni is fighting right and left to get out of ICC. This man is criminal. This man is not even human. It is so absurd that he's walking around the world, meeting world leaders, when this man is so brutal. So brutal, I want my fellow Ugandans and all others who are listening to me to please take time, go to Facebook, Voice of Uganda Radio, Facebook, and read that article. And those who can paste that article and give it to other people to read, please do. This is the only way we can let our people know exactly what happened to people in the north. People in the north, they are completely wiped out. The entire Acholi tribe is completely almost wiped out. And the rest of the country was not aware of what was happening. Museveni killing is no problem for him. We understand by his admission. He started messing up Uganda in 1966. Ever since, Uganda has not been the same. And I've been telling people that there is no way Museveni could have captured power, and within a month, the killings all stopped. Fellow Ugandans, let's get ready and get rid of this man. Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you so much to the caller there and the things that he had to share. It would be amazed at how many people would not shake his hand on all the world leaders that he meets if they knew how much blood was on his hands. You know, we are, this is the reason why we here are really working hard to bring you satellite radio, because we know that a lot of what's talked about, a lot of what is shared here on Voice of Uganda Radio needs to reach into all the corners of Uganda, north, south, east, and west. Because one of the things we understand here at Voice of Uganda Radio is that Uganda needs to become a borderless world, a borderless society, no longer confined by geography. You know, Uganda needs to become one. There is no reason that one collective group of people should be wiped off the face of the earth out of cruelness. It's what happened when we had the dictator, well, not us, but when German Nazis. It's what happened. They felt like one group of people did not deserve to be on the face of the earth, and so they wiped them out. And we can no longer sit aside, and we can no longer allow these things to happen. And people who were part of that Nazi era are still being hunted down, the few that are still around that are left, to face trials for what they've done. This president is no different. He needs to sit before the ICC. Even if he pulls out, we know from conversations had over the weekend that there will still be enough members to continue this forward. And because there's no time limit on the crimes, they still will have to stand for the crimes regardless. So he could not want to be a part of it if he doesn't want to, but he will still have to stand trial for the crimes on humanity that he has already committed. We said in the world, collectively, this is why you're important in the diaspora. We said in the United States and globally throughout the world that we would never sit aside again and allow the atrocities of what happened during Nazi period to ever happen again in any society. So why would we allow this man to still be in power and to still be in charge of allowing these type of atrocities to happen towards Ugandans? That type of leadership, the day for that type of leadership is gone. Yet in the walls of Uganda, this type of behavior is kept quietly and tucked away because that's why he doesn't want media. That's why he doesn't want newspapers. That's why he doesn't want anything. That's what happened in Nazi Germany. Everything was separated. They didn't want people to know what they were doing, so they kept it quiet. They cut themselves off from the world. We will not allow Uganda to be cut off from the world. We have to get into Uganda by satellite radio so that the people of Uganda know that the American people, all of you in the diaspora, no matter where you're at globally, that we are here and we know what's going on. Can you imagine how many Ugandans are living in the situation that they're living in and they have no idea that they have support outside of Uganda because they don't think the world is intact or understands and knows? We have the power, my fellow Ugandans in the diaspora. We have the power. I'm going to take a 5-minute break here, and then we'll come back with the last hour of the show. You are listening to Miss Brenda here on the American Connection here at Voice of Uganda Radio. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Fellow citizens, we call upon you to practice resistance and protest against Museveni. We call upon you to oppose strongly the Museveni government, which is responsible for the downfall of Uganda. It is important to know that Museveni is afraid of the millions of people who are living for that day, for the light of day when Uganda will be liberated from his dictatorial regime. Fellow citizens, it's been 24 years of dictatorship. We should all know that at present our drive for freedom has already grown so strong that Museveni has already begun to change his tactics. We call upon people to participate, to organize silent stand-ins for a free Uganda. We call upon people to demonstrate that we're tired of him. We call upon governments in the United States of America and abroad, people in responsible positions, politicians, only to act in the service of peace, justice, and freedom for Uganda. We call upon people to use all legal and imaginative means and methods in order to ensure peace, justice, and freedom for Uganda. We call upon people from the north and south, from the east and west, and yes, from the central province of Uganda to be loyal to one another. We must preserve our loyalty to human dignity. We call upon people once again not to wait until it is too late to begin thinking about a free Uganda. We call for a new attitude. Arise, fellow citizens, arise. Let us fight for a free Uganda. Museveni must go.
Radio eno ekolaganira wamu n'ekibiina ekya Federalist Alliance of Democracy and Development in Uganda, FADU. Ebigendererwa by'ekibiina kino kuzza mirembe, enkolagana ey'awamu, obwenkanya, okuggyawo enkola y'omwana waani, n'okusosola mu mawanga, okutulugunya, okulya enguzi, ebikudde ejjembe mu Uganda. Era kirwanirira okuzza enfuga eya demokrasiya mu Uganda. Ekibiina kino kye kisookedde ddala okukubiriza buli muntu yenna okukyegattako awatali kusosola mu mawanga n'enzikiriza oba ekitundu omuntu kyalimu mu nsi yonna. Kino kye kiseera twegatte tusobole okuzza obupya ensi yaffe Uganda edobunkanyizibwa. Buli eyandyagadde okwegatta ku kibiina kya FADU kuba ennamba eno 1-8-4-9-7-3-8.
Hello, and thank you for staying tuned for the second half of the American Connection. I have been your host, Miss Brenda, for hopefully you have been with me for the first part as we continue to go on into the second part of this. One thing I do want to say, Senator Coon's information, let me go ahead and give that information. And what I want to do is we are going to put that on Facebook. So it will be out there on Facebook for those of you who may not have a chance to write it down or to get it. But again, that is www.coons, COONS.senate.gov/Africa. That will pull up his economic proposal for Africa, where he has 6 recommendations that he goes through to show how economic ties through those in the diaspora will tie and help the United States of America to have stronger economic ties with their countries back home. It is a lengthy piece. I think it's like 18 pages. If you go to all the way back to recommendations number 6, that's where it gets more involved in that part of the conversation. He also has a video clip. If you click on videos and you read through his video clips, it'll be the economic affairs and strategies with African countries. If you click on that, it's like a 20-minute video. You can watch that. And he talks a lot about how to tie those in the diaspora back with their African countries for economic growth, not only here in the United States, but in the countries as well. So that is information that that is out there and available for you. My caller before I went on a break was talking about some of the atrocities and some of the things that are still happening there in Uganda now, that happened in Uganda under this regime. No, these, things are not happening to that magnitude anymore, but they did happen under this sitting president. And one of the things I want those in the diaspora to understand with the power and the leverage that you have right now, especially in the United States of America, it's going to be very important that the noise is made loud and clear that under this regime, there can be no relations between those in the diaspora and this sitting government, because it will not benefit your families, your businesses, and the things that you want to see grow there in Uganda. This government has had 25 years to make growth and to make change to the Ugandan people, of which he has not done. And he offers no excuse, because in his eyes, he feels that he's doing what's best for the Ugandan people. When those of us who are outside looking into the country, we know and we understand that this is not happening. I was saying before I went on break about what happened in Germany with the Nazis, that the world said that it would never stand by and allow these type of atrocities to happen again, and that those involved in those type of atrocities would be put on trial for those crimes against humanity, of which this sitting president is one of those people. And with that type of blood on his hands, I don't know of anyone in the diaspora who has lived in free, true democracy that wants to be a part of governing up with something like that. It would not be something anyone in their right conscious minds could do, simply because that is not the way we think and that is not the way we feel about Uganda and those that are there. The great thing about education in Uganda is those at the universities are starting to see the power in which they have in the country to make and bring about change. And they do, and it is very important, and it's important that we rally behind them as well, which is why we have Anna Deck on one of our programs on a regular basis, just to bring the students in, to get them involved and help them to understand what's going on too. Because when I said before I went on break that Uganda needs to become borderless. It needs to become a borderless society. As far as the geographical map of Uganda, it should be as one. It should be the same. There should be no part of Uganda in any scope that benefits more than another part of Uganda. We have to start looking at the people in Uganda and what they have to offer and what they bring to the table, especially in the job market. You cannot continue to say that it is okay for Ugandans to be without work. One of my American listeners emailed me and said, I cannot believe this man takes no responsibility for anything he does in the country. And I asked her, I said, well, what do you mean? Because I've encouraged them now. They go out to Voice of Uganda Radio and they read the Observer and the Monitor, and they're keeping in touch with things that are going on. Simply because we have a lot of shows on this program that are in other languages. The articles that talk about the studies, the things that the students are studying, and they don't make any sense, and they should not get degrees. And he blames the parents and the students for not being able to get jobs, when we know that this man has done nothing in this country for the last 25 years to bring companies on board to create these jobs. Can I tell you, my fellow Ugandans, China and India are big right now. And can I also tell you that America, the United States of America, is chasing China and India right now. Now, can we keep in mind that India, in most of our lifetime, have gotten their independence? This wasn't something they always had the benefits of. They got their independence and they made it work for not only the government, but they made it work for the Indian people. Now you have people like the United States of America chasing you for economic growth and ties when it comes to trade and the Trade Commission. And this man has had all of this time to do these things and put these things in place, and he's come up with one excuse after another, after another, after another as to why something isn't being done, can't be done, or will not be done. And how long you in the diaspora, who have all of this power now, the United States, on Senator Kuhn's website, he's starting to show the way the United States of America is starting to work and getting ready to get into partnerships with those in the diaspora to connect back to their countries, because they understand the power and the growth that lives in those communities. And I don't want to be a part of anything that gives credibility to the sitting president. I don't want to be a part of anything that makes the light shine on him brighter than it shines on the Ugandan people. Please stop calling the people of Uganda lazy. Please stop saying that the people of Uganda don't want any more than what they have and they choose to live the way they do. If you're not a part of making change in these people's lives, because you are the one in power, with the power, who can change the course of the country, and you're not doing that, all you're doing is blaming the Ugandan people for resources that they cannot have and cannot get if there is corruption in a government in which no other government wants to work with. My fellow Ugandans in the diaspora and those of you inside the country, the day has come, the time has come, the year has come, that this is a time of changing of leadership. You can no longer govern and be a part of the growing economy of the rest of the world globally with this type of leadership still in place. It just will not happen. Uganda, the former Ugandan president talked about that on the show on Monday on what the markability of Uganda used to be and what the markability of Uganda is today in today's market. It's very sad. It's a very, very sad state of affairs. When you're not going forward, you're going backwards. It doesn't make any sense to anyone, like I said, but the sitting president. That it's okay to go backwards and make excuses for it, but still want to live on the same level as the rest of the world. It does not happen that way. You could sustain yourself over a small period of time, but after time, you can no longer sustain yourself, and you will eventually fall off the face of the earth. Those of you in the diaspora who love Uganda the way I know you love Uganda, otherwise you would not be sending the millions upon billions of dollars that are going into that country. You would not be doing that if you did not love this country. And I believe and I feel that your love for the country does not mean the love for this president, does not mean the love for this regime, does not mean the love for the way that the Ugandan people are being treated, tortured, and continue to live in fear because of what's going on in the country. I don't want anyone's blood on my hands. When this government changes hands, it needs to change hands cleanly. People need to rerun for their seats in elections. There first needs to be established a good election principle and practices there. People need to run for all those offices again with fairity, no corruption anywhere at all. Let the people vote and let the people have and put in place the people that they want in place, because there is no place for corruption in the government. I hear the Attorney General, the Prime Minister, and some of the others are talking about their turn to lead in the government someday. They have no place in the government right now, for the simple reason that the corruption that they have set and allowed to happen, they have been a part of it for such a long time that they're a part of it. As far as the American people see, we don't see them any different from the president. The people you serve under, be careful who you serve under, whether you are in any type of job, any type of government, anything, because who you serve under says a lot about who you are. Now, you may not be the way that person is, and you may not act or react to things the way that person does, but if you stay in a government that rules its people in such a way, you become a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. No one wants you to be a part of the solution simply because of your connections and your ties with that government. We're starting to see a lot of people in great leadership positions start to go in exile, like those of you who are in the diaspora. They're leaving, they're moving away, and they're distancing themselves from this government because they do not believe in, nor do they support the way this government governs that country. Now, does that mean that they themselves don't have things that they need to stand up for and they need to be accountable for to the Ugandan people? Well, of course they do. They have to earn back the trust of the Ugandan people just like everyone else does. But we go forward with our eyes and our ears wide open. Notice I didn't say our mouths, because there's a time for silence. Even those of you in religion know that there's a time that you need to be still in the presence of God. We speak to God through prayer. God speaks to us through meditation and through stillness. If we are going to unite, if we are going to come together, if we are going to collectively be one, it's time to open your eyes and open your ears. To listen to what everyone has to say. To view everybody's opinions from the same standpoint that hurt has crossed all the barriers in Uganda. It hasn't just landed in one area. Maybe one area or one tribe may feel like they have had more atrocities put upon them than others, but it does not separate the fact that you are all Ugandans, and what happened to one happened to all. It's the way we looked at things here in the United States of America when we went through the 60s and we went through civil rights. The one thing was that we all realized the one thing that made us strong in the United States of America in fighting for our freedoms, rights, liberties, and justice for the African American community was that we stood together. We stood united. We were a force to be reckoned with, and they could not ignore us. So, like I shared on Freedom at Hand, when Rosa Parks decided to not give up her seat on a bus to a white man, because she was indeed in the area of the bus that was considered to be for blacks and coloreds, it wasn't her alone that brought about change. It was the community that stood behind her. And we no longer looked at ourselves as mixed blacks, Chinese and black, black and black, Hispanic and black. We didn't look at ourselves and put ourselves in these categories, because, as you know, in the United States of America, black Americans are not just African Americans now, but we are Hispanic Americans. You know, we're Chinese Americans. We are from all ethnic groups that have come in and mixed into the black community. We stood together. We stood united with each other to make our causes and to make ourselves heard. And that is what's going to happen in the Ugandan community as well. And I am really just so excited that the United States of America is starting to give leverage and give power to those in the diaspora. It warms my heart tremendously, because I hope you see this opportunity the way I see this opportunity, as an opportunity to grow and finally come into communication with the American government as to what's happening in Uganda to bring about change. Because the president right now has a fear, not of the Ugandan people that are there in Uganda, because he has them pretty much under control. And we know that from the things that we read, the things that we hear, and the things that we're a part of. But those of you on the outside, the only way he's going to be able to connect Uganda with the United States of America for economic growth through the diaspora is to connect with the diaspora. I don't know of anyone at this point in time that is willing to connect with him to make him such a force that would be able to get the leverage that he needs. I don't see that anywhere. I listen, I'm a part of, I know the conversations that are being had here on Voice Uganda Radio. I also am privileged to know of the conversations that are not being had here on Voice Uganda Radio. So, it's time to move the country forward. It's time to bring about change in whatever way we can bring about that change. At such a time as this, that Voice of Uganda Radio has come up, it's also working to bring about satellite radio. It's also connecting you, those in the diaspora, with those of leaders who have things to share and things to say, to help us all understand things on a different platform. Now is the time. Now is the time. If there were any greater time for change and to move forward, that time is now. It's here and it's now. We have asked numerous times here on Voice of Uganda Radio, and we continue to say, please go out to Voice of Uganda Radio and donate. You can all, it's important to do these things because the progression forward, we're not going to get there if we're not fueling whatever it is we need to fuel to move forward. So you have to understand that what we ask for here in your donations is not for us, because we've already done our part. We've already put Voice of Uganda Radio on the air. We've already started to give free numbers to call in and do things. That is not with the help of anyone except for the handful that have wanted to move this forward and to start to unite the Ugandan people. We have also set up Facebook pages. FADU is big and running. We have also, we're starting to connect you with leaders that you want to hear about things from. Leaders that need to come forward and talk and be a part of the conversation. We're doing a great deal of things to bring about change in Uganda, and we're doing it with a handful of people. But what we're asking you is, if we're going to make this work, if we're going to move to the next level, if we're going to get on board with the United States of America to hear the voice of those in the diaspora here in the United States of America, then we need to start funding our programs so that we can do and reach out and be what we need to be on that sector. Because I tell you, we're going to have to reach out first before they reach back, because they want to know that you're on board and that you're willing to be a part of this and that you're willing to be committed to it. You've already shown that you're committed to it by the millions of dollars that you flood into the Ugandan community. You've already shown that you're a part of it. You have businesses that are thriving. Who better to lead Uganda forward than those who are outside of the country? One of the things I want to share with you, because this is very, very interesting, is that China has had a huge amount of growth, and the global market has been watching them to figure out what they're doing, what's going on, where these spurts of growth coming from, what are they doing that we could do better. That's how we work globally, all of us as a world. We figure out what everyone else is doing, and we put together our models as to how we can go about making this work for us, or how we can go about making this better. One of the things that China did was it opened up a program because it knew that the Chinese and the diaspora were major players in the growth of taking China to the next level. And now America is in a place where we're trying to catch up to China. We're not with China. We're trying to catch up to them. Because what has happened is China realized that the people in the diaspora were the people to bring back into the country, to fuel the country, to bring in new ideas, to bring in creativity, to bring in what they have learned in their collective countries, states, areas, wherever they were. And they knew that a large part of their community in the diaspora was the biggest part of their educated community, who have been able to see things from a lot of different perspectives. So when they implemented a program, they built housing. They put up jobs that made them compatible to the United States of America. So these people knew that not only could they come back and they would have a community where they could start to live and thrive, but they would also be offered jobs that would in no way threaten the way they live outside of China. So China had to make a big leap there and pay these people salaries that they were used to having on the outside. They also did all sorts of other implementations. They did a lot of things to entice these people to come back home. And little by little, bit by bit, they started going back home. The educated, highly educated, in all fields, from technology to medicine to economics growth as far as banking, investment, everything. These people started going back home. And the government took a great interest in these people and put these people in positions within the government to teach others who had never left China, to teach others how the economic growth and how things worked in where they were at, to bring about change in China, because they knew in order to grow to the next level, they were already doing everything that they could possibly do to grow to that level. The next level to get to where they needed to be was only going to be by reaching back into other countries and bringing those who had lived in the diaspora back into the country. And they're thriving. And they are doing so well. And everybody's scratching their heads. That why didn't we think of this? What's going on? This is the growth. This is the new millennium, if you want to call it that. I mean, these are different directions and different paths to take that affect the country overall, not just in certain areas, because they weren't just interested in medical or technology. They were interested overall, and it was important to them to bring these people back home. This is what the new government, not the existing government in Uganda, because nothing is going to happen under the existing government in Uganda. Nothing is going to happen because the trust of the people is gone. You don't even have the trust of the people in Uganda. So you certainly don't have the trust of the people outside Uganda. And they are not willing to be a part of that in any way. But this is what needs to happen in the new government in Uganda. You have got to set up a program that is going to entice those in the diaspora to come back. Whether it be you give them very low interest rate loans to come back in Uganda and build homes. You start by giving them salaries that are compatible to where they are now, putting them in leadership positions, putting them in roles so that they can look at the way Uganda has been structured and start to restructure it. You have brilliant minds in the Ugandan diasporas where they know how to go about getting in touch with companies, creating growth, inviting other investors into Uganda under a transparency umbrella with no corruption, showing them how the Ugandan people can help them in their investments and help them grow to the level that they want to be. I mean, because the Ugandans that are outside in the diaspora all around, those in UK have something to offer. Those in Canada have something to offer. Those in the United States, in Germany, in Sweden, everybody has something to offer and to bring back to the table because we understand and we know the way true democracy works. Getting the education system back up and running. You need the people who are the most educated outside of the country to come in. The best skills in English, the English language and writing to teach the next generation of Ugandans how to communicate not only in Uganda but in the outside world. Medicine, doctors, we have doctors who are business administrators who know how to govern and run a hospital, who know what it takes to set it up and get it running, who have the connections wherever they may be globally to bring doctors in on a volunteer basis to help structure and get Uganda back up and running, how to make money, how to make fundings to fund, because hospitals can fund themselves. Yes, we have government-ran hospitals, but a lot of hospitals can fund themselves if they're set up right and if they have the people with the know-how to come in there and make that transition to move it forward. The university, some of the best professors and lecturers are outside of the country. But they are spending so much money, sending money back into the country for whatever the reasons may be. All of them are usually very, very good reasons. Why not become a part of that community once again? Educating those in the university settings, helping those in the university settings to get to a level of being able to go out and study. One of the worst things that's happening to the Ugandan youth right now is you have such bright people in Uganda. I talked about this on one of my American Connection shows about Ugandans who are being given scholarships to come out and study abroad. But if they do not have the support of the government or the support to show where they're going to come back into the country, the embassies are turning them down and not allowing them to come forward. Even though the majority of these students have a scholarship that is 100% scholarship, meaning room and board, food. It has a small allowance tied with it where they can work only on campus to make monies while they're at the universities. Tuition and books are 100% paid. These are free rides in some of the most best and elite universities, not just in the United States of America, but abroad. But what the problem is they are not able to get past the legalities in Uganda to get out of the countries. We have got to set up a program, and we have got to set up a support system that if Ugandans these youth start to see their fellow Ugandans come back in to build up this country, to make it greater and to make it better, and they know that jobs are promised to them when they get back, these individuals will be able, because the governments will know that they have the support of their countries, they'll be able to leave the country and study and come back. Uganda is one of the largest, but there are countries that it's very difficult for the students to get out because of the downfall of the countries that the government feels like these people have no reason to come back, so they don't let them out. So they're trapped. We have Ugandans, some of the brightest minds in Uganda that are trapped in Uganda, and they cannot connect to the outside world to continue to feed them in the way of knowledge and strength to move them forward. So what are we doing about it, and how are we going to connect them back to the world so that they can continue to be a contributing factor? You heard about it. Anna Adek talked about it on one of our shows on Sunday about one of the students there at Makerere University has come up with what seems to be a cure or something that is helping to advance the study in malaria, one of the biggest problems that Uganda faces today, that has been buried in all sorts of democracy because the government wants to get paid, the government wants the money to come to them, the government. What about the student? What about the university? What about the lecturers? What about what needs to happen overall instead of what needs to collectively happen for a few people that have become corrupt, that they think that anything that the government can benefit from, anything that the country, they feel like anything that the country can benefit from has to go through their hands first. And we know what happens when it goes through their hands. Their hands are sticky, and a lot of it sticks to their hands, so very few of the dollars that have been given in dwindle down to where they need to be. Now you have a place like Johns Hopkins University that wants to go in and further research with this student, wants to spend millions of dollars to bring in the research equipment and everything that needs to be put in place to fund this program so they can continue to send people in, also send medical staff, researchers, professors in to study and figure out what has transpired here, what she has actually found, and how we make this work. Not just in Uganda, but in Africa as a whole, because we're talking globally. The global economy is what we're talking about here today. it has not been able to get off the ground. And it still continues to be tied up and boggled up in all of this government red tape. When those of you who are in the diaspora understand and know the way these things work, Johns Hopkins University would have been given a spot there at the university to set up a scientific area to better the students, because people and lecturers would have been coming in to understand, and they also would have been a part of the lecturing program while they were there. The monies could build and help McCary University. We already know that half a portion, what did they say, a city block of the university is shut down because of sewer problems. So the university's not making money that it could be making from students living in those areas, those dormitories, because of this problem, and which the government still has not felt the need to go back and put money into to fix it up so that they can make money. One of the things you all understand who are listening to my voice, in order to make money, you have to spend money. That's a concept known around the world, but it's not a concept that's known very well in Uganda. This is why it's important for those of you in the diaspora to start to think in terms of in the new government. We have to make sure that something is set up in place to bring you home. We have to be compatible with the markets outside where you live to make it compatible for you to come back into the country. Can this be done? Oh, yes, it can. Is this doable? It most certainly is. Should our teachers be begging for money? No, they would not. Because we on the outside of the country understands what the salary should be for these teachers and these lecturers. We understand that you've got to put money, you've got to spend money to make money. When you have an education system that runs smoothly, works well, gets notoriety, because now you have all these students from Uganda that are leaving the country and studying abroad and going back into their country, people are going to start to say, what is going on? What are they doing? Let's get in there. Let's research this. Let's become a part of this. Let's figure out how we can make this work in our benefit. Because we all need each other globally. We're all a part of the economic trade. Whether it be that we learn scientifically, math, we learn, through math and sciences, medicine, technology, infrastructure, no matter where it is we learn, we are all eager to learn from one another so that we can take those practices back into our own areas and grow. Because what we are all about is growth. All of us. And that growth and potential is there inside of Uganda, but it's not going to happen until those in the diaspora are able to connect with the United States of America to start the dialogue, to start the conversation. To start the dialogue and the conversation on what we need to be talking about, how we need to make this work, what needs to happen so that we can go in there for change. So I say to those in Uganda who are listening to my voice today, and those of you who are outside of the country that has connection with those inside of Uganda, because we know and understand here at Voice of Uganda Radio that even though we set up internet radio, we're reaching the masses of people. But in order to reach the masses of people in Uganda, we're going to have to go satellite. But what I say to the Ugandan people is this. Those of your fellow family members, and we call ourselves family because it doesn't matter if you have a family member outside of Uganda. Everyone in the diaspora has adopted everyone inside the country, because I can honestly say that a lot of what is happening to the Ugandan people falls on the ears of all Ugandans, and we are all very sympathetic. And we all hurt for everything that's happening. When I looked at the memorial video that we had put together, everybody that was being mistreated and hurt in there hurt me. I was deeply moved and saddened by what was happening to those people. So we become family by connection of the torture and the pain and the indecency that is happening to the Ugandan people. And we can no longer sit aside and allow these things to happen, but we already understand and we already know that. That's not the platform that I'm speaking on today. The platform I'm speaking on today is thank God that the world has got on board to start to realize that those in the diaspora are the ones who are to move the countries forward. Not the countries that they're in, but to go back into their collective countries and move their countries forward. And I'm excited about that because that is huge growth. That is huge change. That is big in a major way. It really speaks volumes as to the hard work that you have all been doing, 2 and 2.5 jobs, some of you, just to be able to send money back home to your families. Now the world has finally stood up and taken notice that you are the future leaders to guide us to connecting ourselves to the world. And this even speaks of world peace. When you start having people in the diaspora that start to go back into their collective areas and start to educate and start to become a part of the growth and development in those countries, there starts to be a harmony across the world that starts to happen, because those that are living in the diaspora are away from the evildoers and the evilness of mankind. And they see how we all live together in peace and harmony across the board. And they understand and they know that, and they take this back into a country, and they start to go into the education system, and they start to teach children this at an early age. And they start to teach this in their churches, and they start to teach this in their governments and everywhere. Because one of the things the United States government said that the trajectory of what they're looking at is over the next 2 decades. So if you understand that in the course of that, a lot of us will still be very, very active in our communities and in our countries over the next 2 decades. And over the next 2 decades, they are going to be the United States government is going to be so tied into the African continent that they'll almost be as one as far as the economic growth, because not only will the United States of America grow and develop because of it, but Africa will grow as well. Because for the former vice president to say things like the former sitting president family owns pretty much all of Uganda, and Uganda could collapse in their absence because everything is owned basically by them, that is not acceptable in the hearts of any Ugandans. It is not acceptable, and nor will you accept it. I think Uganda is at a place right now where it is time to reclaim her and bring her back to the glory that she was. And the interesting thing is yes, the government may own a lot, and his family may be managing and business owners in a lot of things, but under a new regime, if the government changes hand, global support will be there for whoever goes in to set Uganda right. Global support will be there. Is there global support in the way it needs to be for the Ugandan government now? I say not. But under a new government, I believe that global support will be there to support the Ugandan people, to get them up and running and moving in the right direction. And those who own properties and those who own businesses and those who own things in Uganda, let me tell you, we will bring in a legal system that will look at everything. Taxes paid, things that should have been done, paperwork, were things done legally, and then maybe it's time to start seizing the properties of those people who have not done things from a legal perspective the way that it should have been done. If they haven't been paying taxes, if they haven't been doing the things that they're demanding that the Ugandan people do, it's time to hold them accountable. I'm sure they probably owe hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in back taxes. Let me tell you what happens in the United States of America when you owe back taxes. Our government comes after you, and they compensate, and they take what you have. What you have no longer becomes yours. It becomes the property of the United States of America. So, yes, they may own a large portion of Uganda. Yes, a lot of what they have they may have gotten it in all the wrong ways. But accountability to the new government is what they will have to have. And if that accountability is not there in checks and balances, then they will start to lose their properties. It will all roll back to the ownership of the government and allow the government to put workers in there, and it'll roll back to the country. And allow the country to put workers in there and to use those things for the better good of the country, not just for a few people within that feel like they have all the rights to everything that they have come to have within the power. Let me just say to the Ugandan family, they may not even be listening to, the family of the sitting president. They may not even be listening, but I'm sure somebody's listening that will be able to get the information over to them. In the fall of any empire, go and do your history. It's not up to me to do your history. This is your time to read up and find out what happens. This is to the sitting president and all of his family members and all of those that he's put in positions that they are not worthy of. In the fall of any empire, one of the biggest things that happens is not only does the leader fall, but all those who were a part of and took part in and participated in, they fall as well. They fall as well. Because like I said at the beginning of the program, the knowledge of Uganda lies on the outside of Uganda. And when that knowledge comes back into the country in full force, because it's what the new regime is going to have to do. They're going to have to set aside ways in which to bring these people back home, and a majority of Ugandans are ready to come back home. And you have to identify these people as people that have lived outside, people that have lived abroad. And if you want them to come back and be a part of the government, we have to make sure that the government works for them because of what they will bring back in and how they will develop and how they will move the country forward. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But under the conditions in which the government is ran now, under the conditions in which things are happening, under the conditions of all of the things that are taking place, it's just not there. And even in a change of regime, being able to now have Ugandans, that those who choose to live in the diaspora continue to work with the United States government, with people who are inside of Uganda, to connect us all together to make it fundamentally good for the United States of America and the people of Uganda and Uganda as a whole. Because, yes, we can create jobs. Yes, the school and the infrastructures can be better. There are so many things that can be done on a small scale that don't even take millions of dollars like this president says. I get a headache every time I hear him throw out these millions and billions numbers, because I look at some of the things that are happening. I may just give you one small example. Here in the United States of America, there's an area, it's Georgia, and it's in the south of the country. Georgia has the roads that are built of clay, the same as the roads in Uganda. Their roads are no different from yours. If you go to Georgia, your car looks like you've been in Uganda by the time you leave. It's really quite funny. The way they maintain those roads is they don't try to pave over those roads, because what they understand is, the major highways are paved. Don't get me wrong, the major structures are all paved. But what they realize is that clay holds a bond that is like concrete. A lot of the Ugandans know this already because you use it to fire and build bricks, and you fire it and use it to make your huts. So you know how strong this clay is. So in these certain areas in Georgia, and it's usually in the rural areas of Georgia, they have bulldozed this sand, and they have ran over it time and time again with these pressing machines that they use to press the roads down when they're making roads out of concrete or whatever, asphalt. But they've used these machines to run over this clay and just continue to pack it and pack it and pack it. And then they compile it on top of itself again, that's collected on the side, and they continue to pack it. Those roads are as good and as sound as roads in the American structure. They do not decay, they do not anything, because what they do is they go in there once a year and they run over it with these machines to keep it packed. And that's the secret in it, is the packing of it. To compound it, to make it stronger. It's stronger the more they run over it with those machines. And they take all the extra, continue to put it in there, and they roll over it. Do you know that just doing that all you would have is the cost of bringing those machines in, hiring Ugandan men, teaching them how to use these machines, and do this, putting together workforces that would work for the Ugandan government. You would have people that would have jobs, and this is what they would do. Do you know that all the roads in Uganda could be structured and maintained in maybe a matter of 1 year of putting these machines in there? And then you put together a team of employees, government employees, that would maintain these roads. And someone would go out and do surveys, and they say this road is getting had a bad rainfall and half of the road is washed away, or this road over here has this going on or that's going on. They come back into the office, they put together a report. The men who work in those areas on those machines know that next month they're going to be working in that area fixing those roads. I don't care if the roads are in the north, south, east, or west. They are fixing Uganda. And this does not require a lot of what this government is saying, that the reason teachers are not getting money right now for their raises and their increases is because now they got to go back to infrastructure and fix the roads, which, by the way, have been the way they've been for a long time. This president seems to juggle things around wherever it sounds best to make it seem like he's doing something, because there's no accountability. Nobody's going out there standing on the side of the road to see that workers are showing up doing the work every day. So there's no accountability. And where there's no accountability, you can tell the people whatever you want to tell them, because they're going to say, oh, we're building and working on roads again. But who's really out there to see that these things are being done and taken care of? But what I'm trying to tell you is you're sitting on a gold mine with the roads you have. It's just a matter of bringing the technology and the people in, the engineers in, who, by the way, there are a lot of Ugandans who have studied agriculture, engineering, and so forth, who knows. And they can go out and read on these Georgia roads now how they use the same clay, because the clay was a nightmare and no one knew what to do with the clay, and the clay was everywhere. And how do we get from point A to point B? So it was really something that puzzled people, and to an engineering group went in there and said, this is the most sound stuff in the world. All you have to do is to continue to pack it. If there's a bad rain in Uganda where things are washed away or washed down, you come in, you get collected all together through the machines, and you run over and you pack it. But it has to be done on an ongoing basis. You can't do it this year and don't look at it again for 5 years. And people in Uganda will be able to drive and survive and live on those roads and just will be amazed. And it will not take a lot of taxpayers' money there in Uganda, and it will not take a lot for this to take place. So there's a lot of things that this sitting president says that really gives the American people and a lot of my American audience a headache, because they just feel like it's just excuses and there's no accountability, and he knows it, that no one's holding him accountable for what he's doing. So he says whatever, and he expects everybody to just get on board and believe it and become a part of it. So, you know, those are things that are going to have to change and need to change. And you know, here in the United States of America, I'm glad to see that Senator Coons' office is getting on board with this, with the Ugandans in the diaspora. We need to start having that conversation, my fellow Ugandans. We need to start thinking. Start thinking today. If I don't put anything else in your mind for you to think about today, start thinking today on this. If I could go back to Uganda in 3 to 5 years, under a government that would work well, that I could make a decent salary, that would set up programs that I could go and get a loan and build a home or do whatever I needed to do, because the government's changing for the better. Those in the diaspora are starting to come back in, and we are looking to change and take back our government. Would I do that? Some of you don't even have to think about it, because your answer is yes, I would. Because we understand and we know the potential in Uganda right now. And if it falls in the wrong hands, it's not going to be a good thing. What we have to do is make sure that it falls in the right hands. Because you already have a president who is saying he needs extended time. You already have a president who's saying the oil that has been found is his. You already have a president who's saying, I want people held accountable when they do things against the government. You already have a president who was allowing his military to run rapid in the country, terrorizing the people of Uganda. That is not a president that I see those in the diaspora working with, connecting and tying to the United States of American government. It isn't at all. So, thank you so much for just being a part of the program and for allowing me to come into your homes today. And I just really hope that you will really listen to and be a part of what it was I had to say and share today. And even though we didn't get any callers, I know you're there and I know that you're listening. And I do thank you so much for being a part of Voice of Uganda Radio and the American Connection today. This is Miss Brenda. I'm signing off for the American Connection. Thank you so much for being a part of the program, and we'll talk to you next week.